Hi, boys and girls. You know, tomorrow night we start celebrating the holiday of Passover. It's a very important holiday for the Jewish people. Long time ago, in the land of Egypt, or Mitzrayim, the first Passover occurred. The Jewish people lived in the land of Egypt, ruled by a terrible man called Pharaoh. He was afraid that the Jewish people would become too powerful and fight against him someday, and so he made them slaves. As slaves, they had to work hard all day, digging holes and making bricks for the buildings and hammering all day long. The Jewish people cried out to God for help, and he decided to send Moses to help them. Moses came to see the Pharaoh and told him that God was not happy with what he was doing to the Jewish people and he should release them. The Pharaoh got angry and said, no, I'll never let them go. And so Moses told him that God would send some terrible things called plagues down upon the Egyptian people. The Pharaoh didn't listen, and finally the plagues came. The first plague was blood. All of the water in Egypt, except for that which the Jewish slaves were drinking, turned to blood. Then came frogs. They jumped in and out and all over in the homes of the Egyptians. Then came itchy lice and wild beasts, and finally the cattle started to die. Each time Pharaoh would say, "Stop, Moses. Tell your God to stop, and I will let your people go." But he would change his mind as soon as God relented. And so God sent boils that covered their skin, and hail that fell from the sky, locusts, which are like giant grasshoppers, to eat all the food in the land of Egypt, and then darkness. And finally, the 10th plague came, the slaying of the firstborn, and the Pharaoh went, "Enough. Take your people out of here and never come back again." And so the Jewish people quickly packed up all of their things in fear that the Pharaoh would change his mind once again. And when they packed up their things, they took what animals they could and what clothing they could, and they didn't have time to let their bread rise. And so they took into the wilderness the flatbread called matzah. All these years later, we still celebrate Passover every year, and we retell the story in the Magid, and we eat special foods and gather together, which we can't do this year, but a lot of people are doing on the Zoom virtual thing, which I don't know not lots about. And so we're having we're still going to celebrate our Seders. And during the Seder, we eat those special foods and we drink 4 cups of wine. And the youngest child in the family also asks the 4 questions. The first question, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh. On other nights, we eat bread, muffins, or rolls. Tonight, we eat only matzah. And that's to remind us of the time that we ran from Egypt and only had time to grab the dough that was not risen into bread. The second question, on other nights, we eat all kinds of vegetables. Tonight, we eat moror, a bitter vegetable. Number 3, on other nights, we don't have to dip our food. Tonight, we dip twice. Once parsley and salt water, and the second time matzah and moror. The final question. On other nights, we eat sitting up straight. Tonight, we lean on pillows. We do that because that was a sign of being free in the land of Egypt. We do all these things on Passover to remember the great exodus when we left Egypt and to remember that freedom is such an important thing. I hope you all have a wonderful Passover. Chag Sameach. I miss you.